Thank you all for coming out here today. My name is Michael Indy, and this is my research partner, Travis Mangione. And we have been working under our advisor, Dr. Rob Keyes, to find out what effects vegetation can have on grassland bird biodiversity and nesting success.
So throughout the eastern United States, grassland birds have been on the decline, greatly due to loss of habitat. So in the early 1980s, they did a breeding bird atlas in Michigan. And in the townships, they found in 211 townships in the 80s. And in the early 2000s, they found them only in 141. So at the Pursuit Creek Institute, they have been trying to restore an endangered ecosystem, the tall grass prairie, which has been removed from the state for over a century. They have removed fence rows and planted native seeds to make the prairies more contiguous, and there's well over 33 hectares of prairie on the property now. Unfortunately, though, the grassland birds have not come into the grasslands and made stable populations.
So last summer, two researchers from Cornerstone University, Darian Lozon and Whitney Lambert, studied how landscape and habitats can affect breeding grassland bird populations here at Pierce Cedar Creek and throughout southwest Michigan. Our study is really meant to build off of their study, focusing more on vegetation, but also adding other variables that can contribute to a more successful management plan for these birds.
So our question is, what vegetative characteristics act as contributors or detriments to bird biodiversity? We believe one of the possibilities could be, as birds come back from their wintering grounds, they see these fields, and on many of our prairies in the beginning of spring look brown and void of life, while the CRP fields and other management practices, they have more green growth in the early season.
We also think that a good diverse mix of cool season and warm season grasses could possibly lead to a more diverse population mix of grassland birds.
We hypothesize that litter depth, vertical height of the grasses, and also the ground cover could be determining factors for which fields the birds choose.
We also think that the fields that they choose will also be directly related to their nesting success.
So I mentioned the Henslow sparrow. It is our primary target for this study, and it is a state endangered species. It's very secretive, and often you never see it, only hear it. It could be 5 meters from you, and you might not even be able to find where it is until you flush it, right, and it'll be right at your feet. Many birders try to find this bird, but usually are only lucky to hear it.
It's really quiet.
Especially when it's windy.
Yeah, I heard this.
Maybe?
Go back a slide. Go back a slide. Over again.
Use a clicker.
I already tried.
Oh,
So it's a very short song. It's roughly only about 3 notes, and it's like, and that's about it. And that's the entire song of a male Henslow sparrow.
Can you just whistle it for us?
I can't whistle.
Yeah, that's twice we've broken this PowerPoint.
This might work.
Can I get coffee?
While we're waiting for that, I'll Google the song and we'll get it on my phone.
I have it on my phone. Just put up to the microphone.
It's okay. It's one of our 8 obligate grassland bird species that we'll be studying this summer, which include the Henslow sparrow, the grasshopper sparrow, the bobolink, the dick sizzle, the upland sandpiper, the eastern meadowlark, the vesper sparrow, and the span sparrow. It should be about all of them. And those, I call them obligate because these birds breed only in our grasslands and are dependent on our grasslands for their nests and everything.
Oh, there we go. Hey.
So these were the species I just talked about. We have the Henslow sparrow, the grasshopper, bobolink, savannah, vesper, dick sizzle, upland sandpiper, and eastern meadowlark.
Along with this, we've also been looking at 3 semi-obligate grassland bird species the common yellowbill, the field sparrow, and the song sparrow. These birds don't fully rely on grasslands for their nesting and habitat, but they can be found in grasslands throughout the Midwest. So over the last couple of months, we've been visiting 20 different sites throughout Kent County, Berry County, and Kalamazoo County. These sites have varied in size from 1 hectare to 61 hectares, as well as their management practices, which we have grouped to mixed management, conservation reserve program fields, and restored prairies. If you're wondering kind of spatially where we are right now, these 3 fields are Pierce Cedar Creek's prairies, and these are our sites in Kent County. There's the airport, and our sites in Kalamazoo County.
So the map you see on the left is one of our point counts. And these maps are, once we pick our field and get permission for them, we go to Google Earth, draw out the field, and convert it over to ArcGIS. At ArcGIS, we make projections into fishnets. Fishnets are simply the grid you see there. Each block is 100 meters by 100 meters, which equals 1 hectare. And in each block, there's a 1 point, which is labeled and put into our GPSs. And we will do a point count survey at each point. A point count survey, you go to the point, and for 5 minutes, you let the birds get acclimated to your presence. And then for 10 minutes, you map out and document all birds, all target birds you see and hear within a 50-meter radius. This must be done within the first 4 hours of sunrise during the breeding season, because that is the time when the birds are most frequently calling and loud as well. In addition, point count surveys can be fairly difficult because in the field you have to estimate the distance at which it's at, and often, like the Henslow sparrow, you do not see the bird you are hearing. And when wind comes into play and also terrain, we have to be fairly accurate in where we place the bird on the point count sheet so that we can put it into our data later.
All right, so when we first got here at Pierce Cedar Creek Institute, we referenced last year's point count data to see what sites had Henslow sparrows and what sites did not have Henslow sparrows. We then visited those sites to take vegetation surveys to see what kind of characteristics these birds look at when they're returning from their wintering grounds. So we were then able to put this data into a box and whisker plot, which showed us kind of the distribution of the data, and I was able to identify outlying data that could have been caused by our observational error. And then we started to look for trends. Here with vegetation density, we didn't see much of a trend as there's not a significant difference between sites with Henslow sparrows and sites without. We started to see a little bit of a trend here with green height growth, suggesting that these sparrows might like sites with less green height growth. But where we really saw the trend was with litter depth. Henslow sparrows do not like sites with a high litter depth. And if you've been out on Pierce Cedar Creek's property, you see a lot of big bluestem, and this big bluestem can create a mat with a very thick litter depth, and this could possibly be one of the reasons that Henslow sparrows have not come to Pierce Cedar Creek's property.
So after our 350 point counts, we compiled all the raw data of individual obligate birds that we found in our fields. As you see, the restored prairies are almost void of all grassland birds. In the 59-hectare site at Kalamazoo, we had 2 individual grassland birds, but the rest were all empty. But mixed management had a huge amount, as you see by this chart, and CRP coming in second. Compare this chart with the next chart with semi-obligates, and it's almost the reverse result. The restored prairies are full of our non-obligate species, with mixed management having the smallest and CRP having it varied. Because we want to find out, we want to find out how this is and why it is. So we want to look at vegetation. The rest of the month of July, we will be doing vegetation measurements. We will use a RoboPole to calculate the vertical density, a Dow-Meyer frame to calculate litter depth, ground cover, and height of the grass, in addition to identifying the species of vegetation that make up these grasslands. We also have been doing nest surveys throughout the past couple of weeks, and we will continue to do them. We want to find out if one management practice has a higher nesting success than another. But nest surveys have proven very difficult. We have not found a nest during one of our nest surveys, but I found plenty accidentally in between point counts.
Along with this, we've been putting all of our data into ArcGIS to see kind of territory buffers and how the territories cross over in opposing point counts. This will give us a more accurate number of individual species so that we can calculate biodiversity and apply it to our models of various landscapes and habitats.
We'd like to thank Willard and Jesse Pierce Foundation and Pierce Cedar Creek Institute, along with Cornerstone University and Calvin College, Chase and Christian Developments of all Point Counties.
We'd also like to thank Kalamazoo Nature Center, the airport in Grand Rapids, and the Michigan Audubon Society for opening up their lands to us, as well as very many landowners here in Barrier County. Thank you.